My name is Daniel Cross, and at 43 years old, I had built what most people would consider a perfect life on the solid foundation my father had laid in the industrial heart of Detroit. I was the second-generation owner of Cross Industries, the manufacturing company my father, Robert Cross, had built from nothing more than a dream, a welding torch, and an unshakable work ethic that defined Depression-era men. What started as a small machine shop in a rented garage had grown into a sprawling facility that employed 180 hardworking people and maintained contracts worth over $15 million annually with automotive giants like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. My wife, Carmen Elena Cross, had been my partner for 19 years of what I believed was a solid, loving marriage. We had met during my senior year at Wayne State University, where she was studying marketing and I was finishing my business degree while learning the manufacturing trade from my father during summers and weekends. Carmen was beautiful, intelligent, and ambitious, exactly the kind of woman I thought would stand beside me as we built something lasting together. Our twin boys, Alex and Jake, were now 17 years old, bright and athletic young men who I had coached through Little League, taught to drive, and planned to bring into the family business when they were ready. My business partner Nathan Blake had been more than just a friend since our sophomore year at Cass Technical High School. We had been inseparable through high school, college, and the early struggles of building Cross Industries into something significant. Nathan was brilliant with machinery, innovative with problem-solving, and charismatic with clients. Everything I needed in a partner to complement my business instincts and financial management skills. For 12 years, we had worked side by side, building something we were both proud of, sharing profits equally, and planning for a future where our children might one day take over what we had created. From the outside, everything appeared perfect. The successful business, the beautiful suburban home in Bloomfield Hills, the luxury cars, the annual family vacations to Florida and Colorado. But perfection, I was about to learn in the most brutal way possible, is often just an expertly constructed illusion designed to hide the rot that has been growing underneath, eating away at the very foundations of everything you thought was solid and permanent. The day I buried my father was the day my carefully constructed world exploded into fragments I never could have imagined. That's when Carmen, standing in her black funeral dress beside my father's grave, handed me divorce papers with the cold precision of an executioner delivering a death sentence. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been watching, documenting, and preparing for this exact moment for months. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even through anger and impulse. Sometimes it's about making sure justice is served with compound interest, delivered with the same calculating patience that my enemies had used against me. The snow was falling in thick, heavy flakes at Woodlawn Cemetery on that bitter January morning as we lowered my father's mahogany casket into the frozen Michigan ground. Robert Cross had been only 68 years old when the massive heart attack claimed him in his sleep, still vital enough to have worked a full day at the plant just hours before his death. The minister, Reverend Williams from our family's church, spoke his final words about eternal rest and heavenly rewards while my breath formed clouds in the sub-zero air. Around us stood nearly 100 people. Family members, business associates, longtime employees, and friends whose lives had been touched by my father's generosity and integrity over the decades. I was standing between my mother Eleanor and my younger brother Marcus, feeling the weight of grief and the sudden responsibility of carrying on Dad's legacy alone, when I felt someone tap my shoulder insistently. I turned to see Carmen standing behind me, her face pale in the winter cold, holding a thick manila envelope that seemed to glow ominously against her black coat. Her dark eyes, which had once sparkled with love and mischief during our college courtship, now looked at me with the cold detachment of a stranger delivering bad news. "Daniel," she said in a voice loud enough for everyone within 20 feet to hear clearly, "you need to sign these papers." Her tone carried no warmth, no consideration for the timing or the setting, no acknowledgement that we were standing beside my father's grave while our family and friends watched in growing confusion and horror. My hands trembled, whether from the cold, grief, or sudden shock, I couldn't tell, as I opened the envelope with numb fingers. Inside were divorce papers, official court documents with Carmen's signature already in place, demanding the immediate dissolution of our 19-year marriage and requesting half of everything we had built together. The legal language blurred before my eyes as I tried to process what was happening. "Are you completely out of your mind?" I whispered harshly, acutely aware of the dozens of pairs of eyes watching our family drama unfold at the most inappropriate moment imaginable. "This is my father's funeral, Carmen. How could you possibly think this was the right time for this?" She looked at me with eyes that seemed to belong to a complete stranger, someone I had never met before, let alone loved and shared a bed with for nearly 2 decades. "This is happening whether you like it or not, Daniel," she replied with icy determination. "We can do this quietly and cooperatively, or we can make it messy and expensive for everyone involved. The choice is entirely up to you, but the outcome will be the same either way." The timing was so deliberately cruel, so calculated to cause maximum emotional damage, that it literally took my breath away and left me speechless in front of everyone who had come to pay their respects to my father's memory. Before I could even formulate a coherent response to Carmen's devastating announcement, my own son stepped forward from the crowd of mourners like actors who had rehearsed this scene multiple times in private. Alex, my firstborn by 12 minutes, the boy I had coached through 8 years of Little League baseball and taught to throw a perfect spiral football in our backyard, looked at me with an expression of pure disgust and disappointment that cut deeper than any knife could have. "Dad, we're going with Mom and Nathan," he announced to the entire funeral crowd, his voice carrying clearly across the cemetery in the cold air. "We've already made our decision, and nothing you say is going to change our minds about this." Jake, my younger twin who had always been more sensitive and thoughtful, the boy who used to crawl into my lap and ask me to read him bedtime stories until he was almost 10 years old, nodded in solemn agreement with his brother's declaration. "Nathan cares about us more than you ever did, Dad," he said coldly, each word hitting me like a physical blow. "He actually spends time with us and pays attention to what we want. You're always too busy with work or taking care of Grandpa to care about what's important to us." Nathan Blake, my business partner since we had started Cross Industries together 12 years earlier, my best friend since we were 15 years old, stepped forward and put his arms protectively around both of my boys like he was shielding them from a dangerous predator. The man I had trusted with my business, my family, and my most intimate secrets was standing there at my father's grave, literally stealing my children away from me while positioning himself as their protector and savior. "The boys have been staying with me for the past 2 weeks, Nathan said calmly, as if discussing the weather rather than destroying my family. "They're comfortable there. They have their own rooms, and they've made it clear that's where they want to be during this transition period." My mother Eleanor started crying openly, her sobs echoing across the cemetery as she realized that her grandsons were rejecting their own father at their grandfather's funeral. My brother Marcus looked like he wanted to physically attack someone, his hands clenched into fists as he struggled to understand what was happening to our family. But I just stood there in stunned silence, watching my entire world collapse in front of 50 shocked relatives and friends who had come to honor my father's memory, and instead were witnessing the complete destruction of everything he had worked to build and protect. Nathan Blake and I had founded Cross Industries together when we were both 31 years old, young men with big dreams and the energy to work 18-hour days to make those dreams reality. My father Robert had provided the initial capital investment of $150,000, money he had saved over decades of careful living and smart investing. Nathan brought his engineering expertise, his innovative approach to manufacturing processes, and his natural ability to connect with potential clients and make them believe in our vision. Over the 12 years since our founding, Nathan had become far more than just a business partner. He had become like a second son to my father and a brother to me in every way that mattered. Dad had given Nathan keys to our family home, complete access to all our business bank accounts, and had even made him a beneficiary in his life insurance policy as a gesture of trust and appreciation. Nathan knew every detail about our family's finances, from our retirement accounts to our children's college funds to the specific terms of various insurance policies that protected our assets. Nathan was the godfather to Alex and Jake, chosen for that honor when they were baptized as infants. He had attended every one of their birthday parties, every Christmas dinner, every family vacation to Mackinac Island or the Florida beaches. He had been there for their first steps, Their first words, their first day of school, their baseball games, their school plays, and every other milestone moment that defines a child's growth into adulthood. In our business relationship, I had given Nathan signing authority on most of our company accounts, access to our safety deposit boxes, and complete knowledge of our client relationships and proprietary manufacturing processes. He knew our profit margins, our cost structures, our expansion plans, and our long-term strategic vision. Nathan had duplicate keys to our facility, knowledge of our security systems, and access to our most sensitive financial and operational information. Now I realized with growing horror that all of that trust, all of that access, all of those intimate family and business secrets had been systematically cataloged and weaponized against me. Nathan had spent years learning every vulnerability in my personal and professional life so that when the time came, he could destroy everything I cared about with surgical precision and devastating effectiveness. Looking back with the clarity that only comes after a catastrophe, I should have noticed the warning signs that had been accumulating for months like dark clouds gathering before a devastating storm. Carmen had started staying late at her job at Morrison & Associates marketing 3 nights every week, claiming she was working on a major campaign for a new client that required extensive research and planning. When I asked about the specifics of this mysterious project, she would become evasive and irritated, accusing me of not trusting her professional judgment and capabilities. She began buying expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and luxury accessories that seemed far beyond what her $65,000 annual salary could reasonably support. When I casually mentioned the cost of an $800 necklace or a $1,200 handbag, she would claim they were gifts from grateful clients or items she had purchased on sale. Her explanations were always plausible enough that I didn't push the issue, but the accumulation of expensive items should have raised more serious red flags than it did. Carmen's phone became a constant source of secrecy and protection. She started keeping it turned face down on tables during dinner, taking it with her to the bathroom, and sleeping with it under her pillow instead of on the nightstand where it had always been. She changed all her passwords, email, social media, banking apps, without any explanation, claiming she had read an article about identity theft and wanted to improve her digital security. She started attending a new fitness class downtown at an upscale gym that cost $200 per month, much more expensive than the neighborhood gym where she had worked out for years. She claimed she needed time with girlfriends every weekend, attending book clubs, shopping excursions, and social events that always seemed to exclude spouses and require her to be gone from morning until late evening. Meanwhile, Nathan had begun asking increasingly strange and specific questions about our family's financial situation during our regular business meetings. He wanted detailed information about life insurance policies, who the beneficiaries were, what the payout amounts would be, and what would happen to the business if something happened to me. He kept bringing up my father's health problems and asking when I thought Dad might consider retiring from active involvement in the company. Nathan also started inquiring about my father's estate planning, asking whether Dad had updated his will recently and what provisions had been made for the business succession. At the time, I thought Nathan was just being prudent and planning for our company's future stability. Now I understand he was gathering intelligence for something much more sinister and calculating than business planning. 3 weeks before my father's funeral, our IT manager Brian Foster knocked on my office door with a troubled expression that immediately put me on alert. Brian had worked for Cross Industries for 6 years, starting as an entry-level technician and working his way up to managing all our computer systems, network security, and digital infrastructure. He was thorough, reliable, and had never brought me a problem without having already researched potential solutions. "Boss, we've got some unusual computer activity that I think you need to know about," he said, placing a thick folder of printed reports on my desk. "Someone's been accessing our financial systems after hours using Nathan's login credentials, and the pattern is definitely suspicious." The login records showed that Nathan had been in our system nearly every night for the past 6 weeks, always after 10 p.m., and often staying online until 2 or 3 a.m. He had been systematically downloading bank statements, payroll records, client contracts, vendor agreements, and detailed financial reports that covered every aspect of our business operations. Most concerning, he had accessed files related to our company retirement fund, employee pension accounts, and my personal financial accounts that were linked to the business for tax and operational purposes. This level of after-hours access isn't normal for anyone, even a business partner, Brian explained carefully. Nathan's regular work schedule has never required him to access financial systems late at night, and the specific files he's downloading suggest he's looking for something very particular. He's also copying everything to external drives, which could be innocent backup behavior, but combined with the timing and scope of access, it raises serious concerns. Brian had also noticed that Nathan had been using his administrative access to view employee personal files, including social security numbers, addresses, emergency contacts, and banking information for direct deposits. I can't think of any legitimate business reason why he would need this level of personal employee data, Brian said. I told Brian to continue monitoring Nathan's activity quietly without alerting him that we were aware of his unusual behavior. Something deep in my gut told me this was connected to Carmen's increasingly strange behavior over the past few months, but I had no idea yet how extensive their conspiracy actually was or how long they had been planning to destroy my life. That same week, I made a decision that would ultimately save my life and my livelihood. I hired Marcus Stone, a private investigator who had spent 15 years working financial crimes for the FBI before starting his own investigative firm specializing in corporate fraud, adultery cases, and complex family betrayal scenarios. Marcus came highly recommended by Helen Rodriguez, our family attorney, who had used his services for other clients facing similar situations. I need to know exactly what my wife and business partner are doing behind my back, I told Marcus during our first meeting at his downtown Detroit office. I have evidence of suspicious computer activity at work and strange behavior from my wife at home, but I need concrete proof of what's really happening before I take any action that could destroy innocent people or damage my business. Marcus was a quiet, methodical man in his early 50s who looked like he could disappear into any crowd without being noticed. Exactly the kind of person you'd want conducting surveillance without being detected. His office walls were covered with certificates, commendations, and photographs from his FBI career, including several cases involving multi-million-dollar financial crimes that had resulted in significant prison sentences for the perpetrators. I've handled cases like this before, Mr. Cross, he said calmly. When a spouse suddenly exhibits secretive behavior and a business partner starts accessing files inappropriately outside normal working hours, there's usually money involved, and often there's a personal relationship that's driving the financial crimes. Give me 10 days of active surveillance and financial investigation, and I'll have concrete answers about what you're dealing with. I paid Marcus a $15,000 retainer fee and provided him with all the information he needed to start investigating Carmen and Nathan's activities. I gave him their daily schedules, vehicle descriptions, license plate numbers, credit card information, and detailed backgrounds on their known associates and regular haunts. Marcus assured me that within 2 weeks, he would have a complete picture of what was happening behind my back. Marcus Stone worked with the efficiency and thoroughness I had expected from a former FBI agent. Within 1 week of beginning his investigation, he had followed Carmen to the Riverside Hotel downtown, an upscale establishment that catered to business travelers and wealthy locals looking for discretion. The hotel was expensive, elegant, and exactly the kind of place where people went when they wanted privacy for activities they couldn't conduct at home or work. Marcus took clear, time-stamped photographs of Carmen meeting Nathan for extended lunches that lasted 3 hours or more. The photos showed them holding hands across restaurant tables, kissing passionately in the hotel parking lot, and entering a luxury suite together on multiple occasions. The body language and intimacy captured in these images left no doubt that their relationship had progressed far beyond friendship or business collaboration. But the evidence became even more damaging when Marcus discovered that Nathan had been paying for the hotel room using a cross-industries company credit card. He was literally using our business funds to finance his affair with my wife, creating a clear trail of financial evidence that connected their personal betrayal to actual embezzlement from our company. The hotel records showed that Nathan had been renting the same suite twice a week for over 2 months, always during business hours when I assumed he was working on company projects. Marcus also uncovered a pattern of expensive gifts that Nathan had been purchasing for Carmen using various company accounts. restaurant charges at Detroit's most expensive establishments, jewelry purchases from upscale boutiques, weekend hotel stays in Chicago and Cleveland, and even a $3,000 weekend spa package in Traverse City, all paid for with Cross Industries funds and disguised as business expenses with fake vendor names and fabricated invoices. The private investigator's final report included over 200 pages of documentation, including photographs, financial records, hotel registration information, and detailed timelines that proved the systematic nature of their affair and the financial crimes that were funding it. Marcus warned me that this level of evidence suggested their relationship was serious and long-term, not a casual affair, and that the financial aspect indicated they were planning something much larger than simple adultery. The most shocking discovery in Marcus Stone's investigation came when he identified a third major conspirator in their plot against me. Angela Morrison was a probate attorney with a notorious reputation for helping clients challenge wills, manipulate inheritance proceedings, and find legal loopholes that allowed people to steal assets that weren't rightfully theirs. Her law firm, Morrison Legal Services, specialized in what they euphemistically called estate recovery and inheritance optimization, but what amounted to sophisticated legal theft. Marcus had followed Carmen and Nathan to Morrison's law office on 3 separate occasions, where they held lengthy meetings that lasted several hours each time. Through careful surveillance and public records investigation, Marcus discovered that the trio had been meeting regularly for over 2 months, discussing my father's will, his estate planning, and various legal strategies for challenging his final wishes after his death. Phone records subpoenaed through Marcus's law enforcement contacts revealed dozens of calls between all 3 conspirators, often lasting an hour or more, discussing topics that included my father's health status, the terms of his will, the structure of Cross Industries, and my personal financial assets. Angela Morrison had been providing detailed legal advice about how to contest my father's will, how to claim that he was mentally incompetent when he made his final estate decisions, and how to position Nathan as a more suitable beneficiary for the business based on his day-to-day operational involvement. The meetings with Angela Morrison proved that this wasn't just a simple affair or even basic financial fraud. This was a carefully planned, long-term conspiracy designed to steal my inheritance, destroy my marriage, alienate my children, and leave me financially and emotionally devastated while they walked away with everything my family had worked to build over 2 generations. The legal research that Angela had conducted showed they were preparing for a complex, multi-front assault on everything I owned and cared about. Marcus also discovered that Angela Morrison had been paid $75,000 in consulting fees from Cross Industries accounts over the past 4 months, money that Nathan had disguised as payments for legal services related to our business operations. In reality, we had been paying for the legal advice that would be used to rob us blind. Perhaps the most heartbreaking discovery in Marcus Stone's investigation was the systematic way that Nathan had been manipulating my teenage sons, slowly poisoning their relationship with me while positioning himself as the ideal father figure they should love and respect. Bank records revealed that Nathan had been secretly buying Alex and Jake expensive gifts for months, always timing these purchases for moments when I was busy with work or caring for my sick father. He had purchased a $4,000 Kawasaki motorcycle for Alex, telling him it was an early graduation gift and that he shouldn't mention it to me because I would be jealous and controlling about his freedom and independence. Nathan paid for Jake's expensive music equipment, a professional quality guitar amplifier, recording software, and studio monitors, worth over $3,000, while telling him that I was too cheap and unsupportive to invest in his musical talents and ambitions. Nathan had also been taking the boys on expensive weekend trips to Chicago, Cleveland, and Toronto, staying in luxury hotels, and attending professional sporting events that I couldn't afford on my salary alone. During these trips, he would buy them designer clothes, expensive meals, and entertainment experiences while constantly reinforcing the message that I was too busy and selfish to provide these kinds of opportunities for them. The most insidious part of Nathan's manipulation was how he had been scheduling these activities during times when I was dealing with my father's deteriorating health. Every time I had to spend a weekend at the hospital with Dad, Nathan would swoop in and take the boys somewhere exciting, making sure they associated my absence with missing out on fun experiences. He was deliberately creating a contrast where I represented duty, responsibility, and limitation, while he represented freedom, generosity, and excitement. Marcus had even recorded conversations where Nathan coached the boys on what to say to me, helping them develop arguments about why I was an inadequate father and why they would be better off living with him and Carmen. The manipulation was calculated, systematic, and designed to weaponize my own children against me during the most vulnerable period of my life. It was the cruelest aspect of their entire conspiracy, and it filled me with a rage and determination for justice that I had never felt before in my life. During my father's final months, as he struggled with increasing heart problems and high blood pressure that eventually led to his death, I faced the most difficult moral decision of my entire life. I had accumulated overwhelming evidence of Carmen and Nathan's conspiracy against me, but I couldn't bring myself to destroy my father's remaining time on Earth with such a devastating and heartbreaking scandal. Robert Cross was 68 years old and had already suffered 2 minor heart attacks that had weakened him significantly. His doctors had warned that stress, emotional trauma, or shock could trigger a fatal cardiac event at any time. Despite his physical decline, Dad maintained an optimistic spirit and derived enormous happiness from what he believed was his loving, successful family and the thriving business he had built with Nathan as his trusted partner. Dad would light up whenever Carmen visited him in the hospital, bringing his favorite magazines, homemade soup, and updates about the grandchildren's activities and achievements. He constantly talked about how lucky he was to have such a wonderful daughter-in-law who treated him with respect and affection. Carmen would sit by his bedside for hours, holding his hand and listening to his stories about the early days of Cross Industries, all while secretly planning to steal everything he had worked to build. Similarly, Nathan would spend entire evenings at Dad's bedside, discussing business operations, sharing ideas for future expansion, and assuring him that Cross Industries would continue thriving for generations to come. Dad treated Nathan like the son he had always wanted, praising his engineering skills, his business instincts, and his loyalty to our family. He had even told me several times that if anything happened to me, he was confident that Nathan would take care of Carmen and the boys like his own family. I couldn't take away my father's peace and happiness during his final weeks by revealing that the people he loved most were planning to betray everything he had worked for. So I made the agonizing decision to wait, to watch, and to continue gathering evidence while my heart broke a little more each day. I watched Nathan sit by Dad's bedside, pretending to care while secretly downloading our financial records. I watched Carmen bring Dad his favorite meals while she met with divorce attorneys and probate specialists. The hypocrisy and cruelty of their behavior was almost unbearable, but I forced myself to wait for the right moment to act. While I waited for my father to pass away naturally, I wasn't sitting around passively accepting my fate. Working carefully and methodically, I began moving my personal assets to new accounts that Carmen couldn't access, claim, or even discover during divorce proceedings. I transferred money to banks where she had never been listed as a joint account holder, opened new safety deposit boxes in facilities she didn't know about, and began systematically removing valuable items from our shared home. I moved important documents, birth certificates, insurance policies, business contracts, property deeds, to secure locations that only I could access. I transferred ownership of certain assets to my mother and brother, creating legal barriers that would make it difficult for Carmen to claim them during divorce proceedings. I even moved some of our most valuable business equipment to secure storage facilities, protecting it from potential seizure or destruction. Every conversation with Nathan was secretly recorded using a sophisticated digital device that Marcus Stone had provided me. The recorder was small enough to fit in my shirt pocket and powerful enough to capture clear audio from across a conference room. Every suspicious action from Carmen was carefully documented with dates, times, photographs, and detailed written notes that would stand up in court proceedings. I worked with our accountant to create detailed financial records showing the legitimate separation between personal and business assets, making it clear which money belonged to the company and which belonged to our family. This documentation would be crucial for protecting Cross Industries from any claims that Carmen might make during divorce proceedings. I also began building relationships with key employees, clients, and suppliers, making sure they understood that I was the legitimate owner and operator of Cross Industries, and that any future changes in business relationships should be approved by me personally. This network of professional relationships would be essential for maintaining business continuity after Nathan's inevitable departure. My years in manufacturing had taught me that the strongest products require careful planning, precise engineering, and attention to every detail that could cause failure under stress. I was building the strongest possible case against my enemies, constructing it with the same methodical care that we used to build the precision machinery that had made Cross Industries successful and profitable. Working closely with Brian Foster, our IT manager, I established sophisticated monitoring systems that would alert me immediately to any suspicious financial activity within Cross Industries. Brian was completely trustworthy. He had worked for us for 6 years, had access to our most sensitive systems, and had never given me any reason to doubt his loyalty or discretion. Together, we created a comprehensive surveillance network that would capture every digital action Nathan took within our company's computer systems. We implemented automatic notifications for any financial transfers over $5,000 from any company account. I established alerts for any changes to our business insurance policies, banking relationships, or account authorization structures. We created monitoring systems that would track any attempts to access employee personal information, payroll records, or client contact databases outside of normal business hours. Brian also helped me upgrade our office security system to include sophisticated audio recording equipment in all conference rooms where Nathan might discuss his plans with co-conspirators or potential accomplices. These recordings would be admissible in court as evidence of conspiracy and fraud, since they were taken in company facilities using company equipment to monitor company business discussions. We installed keylogger software on Nathan's office computer that would record every keystroke, every website visit, every document access, and every email sent or received. This software operated invisibly in the background, creating a complete digital record of Nathan's activities without his knowledge or consent. Since he was using company equipment for potentially criminal activities, this surveillance was completely legal and appropriate. I even had Brian create fake financial documents that would tempt Nathan into attempting larger thefts if he believed I was distracted by family problems. These honeypot accounts contained fabricated balances that would encourage Nathan to make bigger, more easily detected theft attempts when he thought the time was right to make his move. Every phone call Nathan made from company phones was recorded and stored on secure servers that only Brian and I could access. Every email he sent through our company's system was automatically copied to a secure backup server. Every financial transaction he attempted was logged with multiple redundant systems that would make it impossible for him to deny his criminal activities later. Nathan had no idea that his every move was being watched, recorded, and documented by multiple overlapping surveillance systems. He believed he was operating in complete secrecy, but in reality, he was walking deeper into an invisible digital net that would eventually provide irrefutable evidence of his crimes against our company and our family. The most emotionally exhausting aspect of this entire ordeal was pretending that everything was normal while my father was dying and my marriage was being systematically destroyed by the people I trusted most. Every single day required me to deliver the performance of my lifetime, acting like a loving husband and loyal business partner while building a case that would eventually send both Carmen and Nathan to federal prison for their crimes against my family. I had to sit at our dinner table every evening, making pleasant conversation with Carmen about her day at work, knowing that she had spent her afternoon in a hotel room with my best friend, using money stolen from our company to pay for their romantic getaway. I had to listen to her complain about feeling disconnected from me, about my spending too much time at work, about my being emotionally unavailable during my father's illness, all while she was planning to serve me with divorce papers at his funeral. At work, I had to collaborate with Nathan on business decisions, discuss expansion plans, and make strategic investments for our company's future, all while knowing that he was systematically stealing from our accounts and planning to destroy everything we had built together. I had to act grateful for his support during my father's illness, his help with my family responsibilities, and his friendship during a difficult time when I knew he was actually orchestrating the complete destruction of my life. The most challenging moments came during family gatherings where Nathan would bring gifts for Alex and Jake, expensive items that I now knew were purchased with stolen company money. I had to watch my sons thank Nathan enthusiastically while treating me with increasing coldness and distance, all while knowing that Nathan was deliberately manipulating them to hate their own father. I forced myself to be patient and disciplined, never allowing my anger or suspicion to show in my facial expressions, voice tone, or body language. I knew that if I confronted them too early, before I had gathered sufficient evidence, they might find ways to hide their criminal activities, destroy incriminating documents, or escape the legal consequences of their betrayal. Every day required me to act surprised by their suggestions, grateful for their help, and trusting of their advice, when I knew they were giving me guidance designed to make me more vulnerable to their attack. I had to pretend to be the naive, unsuspecting victim they thought they were manipulating, while actually staying several steps ahead of their conspiracy through careful surveillance and evidence gathering. My father died peacefully in his sleep on a Thursday morning in January, his weakened heart finally unable to continue supporting his body after months of declining health. I was holding his hand when he took his final breath, and Nathan was standing directly behind me with his hand on my shoulder, pretending to offer comfort and support while undoubtedly calculating how quickly he could move to steal our company's assets now that the biggest obstacle to his plan had been removed. 3 days later, we held the funeral where Carmen served me with divorce papers in front of our entire extended family, extended friends, business associates, and long-term employees who had come to pay their respects to my father's memory. The public humiliation was carefully calculated to maximize my emotional distress and create chaos that would distract me from protecting our business and personal assets. But what happened during the following weekend proved that I had been absolutely right to wait and gather evidence before taking action against my enemies. While I was dealing with funeral arrangements, family obligations, and the shock of the public divorce announcement, Nathan made his biggest and most dangerous mistake yet. He attempted to transfer $2.3 million from our company's main operating account to an offshore banking facility in the Cayman Islands that he had secretly established months earlier. Nathan clearly believed that I would be too distracted by grief, divorce proceedings, and family drama to notice major financial transactions happening in our business accounts. He thought that the emotional chaos of losing my father and my marriage simultaneously would create enough confusion to allow him to steal a massive amount of money without immediate detection. The transfer was scheduled to process over the weekend, when most banking security personnel would be unavailable and when I would be least likely to check our business accounts due to family obligations and personal crisis management. Nathan had timed his theft attempt to coincide with my greatest vulnerability, demonstrating the calculated cruelty that had been driving his conspiracy against me from the beginning. He had no idea that sophisticated monitoring systems were tracking his every financial move, and that automatic alerts would notify me within minutes of any significant transaction attempt, regardless of what else was happening in my personal life at the time. Nathan was completely wrong about my attention to detail and my commitment to protecting our company's assets, even during the most difficult period of my personal life. The comprehensive monitoring systems that Brian Foster and I had installed months earlier immediately flagged Nathan's transfer attempt and sent emergency alerts to multiple devices within minutes of him. Even while dealing with funeral arrangements and family crisis, I was able to contact our bank's fraud prevention department and provide them with sufficient evidence to freeze the transfer before it could be completed. The money was trapped in a pending status, neither in our company account nor successfully transferred to Nathan's offshore account, creating a perfect legal trap that proved his criminal intent beyond any possible doubt. Nathan didn't know that the transfer had been blocked and that the money was stuck in legal limbo pending a fraud investigation. He believed his theft had been successful and that he now had $2.3 million in an untraceable offshore account that could fund his new life with Carmen and my children. His confidence in his success made him careless and arrogant in ways that would prove devastating for his legal defense later. The forensic evidence created by this failed transfer attempt was absolutely perfect for prosecution purposes. The transaction records showed clear intent to steal a specific amount of money. The offshore account proved premeditation and planning, and the timing demonstrated that Nathan was taking advantage of my emotional distress for financial gain. No jury would have any difficulty understanding the criminal nature of his actions. Nathan had tried to steal $2.3 million of our company's money during the same weekend that he helped my wife serve me with divorce papers at my father's funeral. The timing was so calculated and cruel that it revealed the true depths of their conspiracy and their complete lack of human decency or moral boundaries. But Nathan's greed and impatience had worked against him perfectly, providing me with the final piece of evidence I needed to destroy them both completely and ensure they would spend many years in federal prison paying for their crimes against my family. Monday morning arrived with typical Michigan winter weather. Gray skies, bitter cold, and the kind of oppressive atmosphere that seemed to match the gravity of what I knew was about to unfold. Nathan walked into my office at Cross Industries looking panicked and desperate, his usual confident demeanor replaced by obvious anxiety and barely controlled fear about something that was clearly weighing heavily on his mind. "Daniel, we've got a serious problem with our banking system," he said, trying to sound concerned and professional, but clearly terrified about something specific. His voice was shaking slightly, and I could see perspiration on his forehead despite the cold temperature in the building. "There's been some kind of technical error with a large payment that I processed on Friday afternoon." I looked up from my desk where I had been reviewing the forensic banking reports that documented his failed theft attempt, and I gave him my calmest, most innocent expression. I had practiced this moment in my mind dozens of times, and I was ready to watch him dig his own grave with lies and deception. "What kind of payment are you talking about, Nathan?" I asked with genuine curiosity, as if I had no idea what he was referring to. "I don't recall approving any large payments on Friday, and I usually sign off on anything over $50,000. Nathan started sweating more heavily and stumbling over his words nervously, clearly unprepared for detailed questions about his fictitious transaction. "It was just a routine transfer to one of our major suppliers," he lied badly, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting with papers on my desk. "But the bank is saying there's some kind of security freeze on the transaction, and they won't give me any details about what's causing the delay." I let him squirm and make up increasingly elaborate lies for several more minutes, watching him create a deeper hole for himself with every word he spoke. His story kept changing in small but significant ways. First it was a supplier payment, then it was an equipment purchase, then it was an insurance payment that had been delayed from the previous month. Finally, I decided to end his misery and begin the process that would destroy his life as completely as he had tried to destroy mine. "Nathan," I said quietly, leaning back in my chair and looking directly into his eyes, "I know about the $2.3 million. I know about the offshore account in the Cayman Islands. And I know about everything else you and Carmen have been planning for the past year." The blood drained from Nathan's face so quickly that I thought he might faint or have a heart attack right there in my office. That same afternoon, I called my attorney Helen Rodriguez and arranged an emergency meeting to present all the evidence I had accumulated over months of careful investigation and surveillance. Helen was a tough, experienced lawyer who had been practicing family law and corporate litigation for over 20 years. She had represented my father in various legal matters for over 15 years and knew every detail of our company's legal structure, financial assets, and business operations. Helen's law firm, Rodriguez and Associates, occupied an entire floor of a downtown Detroit office building and employed 12 attorneys who specialized in complex financial crimes, business fraud, and high-stakes divorce proceedings. Her office walls were covered with legal awards, certificates of achievement, and photographs with judges, prosecutors, and other prominent legal professionals who respected her expertise and integrity. "Daniel," Helen said after spending 3 hours reviewing all of Marcus Stone's investigative reports, the digital evidence Brian Foster had collected, and the banking records that documented Nathan's theft attempts. "This is one of the clearest cases of conspiracy, embezzlement, and systematic fraud I've ever seen in my career. The evidence you've gathered is comprehensive, well-documented, and absolutely devastating for anyone trying to defend against these charges." Helen explained that the scope and sophistication of the crimes Nathan and Carmen had committed required immediate involvement from federal law enforcement agencies with expertise in financial crimes, international banking fraud, and complex conspiracy cases. Because of the offshore banking components and the large amounts of money involved, this falls under federal jurisdiction, she said. We need to bring in the FBI's Financial Crimes Division immediately. Helen contacted FBI Special Agent Jennifer Walsh that same day and arranged for federal agents to review our evidence and begin their own investigation into Nathan and Carmen's criminal activities. She also helped me file emergency court orders to freeze all business accounts that Nathan had access to and to prevent Carmen from accessing any of our shared marital assets while the criminal investigation was proceeding. Within 48 hours, FBI agents had obtained search warrants for Nathan's home, office, and electronic devices. They also secured warrants for Carmen's workplace, personal computers, and banking records. Angela Morrison's law office was included in the search warrants as a potential co-conspirator in the inheritance fraud conspiracy. The federal government was now actively investigating my enemies with the full power of law enforcement agencies that had unlimited resources and expertise in prosecuting exactly these types of crimes. The forensic accountants that the FBI brought in to analyze our business records discovered that Nathan's theft attempts went back much further than I had realized and involved far more sophisticated methods than simple account transfers. FBI Special Agent Jennifer Walsh supervised a team of financial crime specialists who spent 3 weeks examining every transaction, every invoice, and every financial record from the past 2 years of cross-industries operations. They found evidence of completely fabricated contracts with non-existent suppliers that Nathan had been using to steal money from our company for over 18 months. These fake companies existed only on paper and in computer records, but Nathan had been sending them regular payments for services that were never actually performed. The money was being transferred to accounts that Nathan controlled, then moved through several intermediary banks before ending up in offshore accounts that would be difficult for victims to trace or recover. The forensic analysis revealed inflated invoices for legitimate services where Nathan had been adding extra charges that went directly to his personal accounts. For example, a genuine $10,000 equipment maintenance contract would be processed as a $15,000 payment, with the extra $5,000 being diverted to Nathan's secret accounts. Over time, these small additions accumulated into hundreds of thousands of dollars in stolen money. Even more sophisticated was Nathan's creation of phantom employees on our payroll, fake identities with social security numbers, addresses, and bank accounts that Nathan controlled. These employees received regular paychecks for work they never performed, and the money was immediately transferred to Nathan's offshore financial network. The FBI found evidence of 12 phantom employees who had been receiving salaries for months without ever setting foot in our facility. The total amount of money Nathan had stolen or attempted to steal over the past 2 years was $3.8 million, far more than the $2.3 million transfer that had initially exposed his criminal activities. This was systematic, long-term financial fraud that demonstrated clear intent to destroy our company and steal our family's livelihood. The forensic investigation also revealed that Angela Morrison had been paid $125,000 from our company funds over the past year, money that Nathan had disguised as legal consulting fees for various business purposes. In reality, we had been paying for the legal research and strategic planning that Angela was providing to help them steal our inheritance and destroy our family. The most damaging evidence against Nathan and Carmen came from their own electronic devices and communication records. When FBI agents executed search warrants on their phones, computers, email accounts, and text messaging systems, they discovered months of detailed communications that revealed the full scope of their conspiracy and the cruel pleasure they took in planning my destruction. FBI computer forensic specialists recovered over 2,000 text messages between Nathan and Carmen that documented their affair, their financial crimes, and their detailed plans for stealing our family's assets. Many of these messages were sexually explicit and included cruel jokes about my appearance, my personality, and my effectiveness as a husband and father. Reading these messages was emotionally devastating, but they provided irrefutable proof of their relationship and their criminal conspiracy. In one particularly cruel recorded phone conversation, Nathan laughed about how easy it had been to turn Alex and Jake against me while I was busy taking care of my pathetic dying father. Carmen joined in the laughter and said she couldn't wait to move to Florida with Nathan and leave me, broke and alone in Detroit, to suffer the consequences of losing everything I had worked for. Other recordings revealed detailed discussions about my father's declining health and their excitement about his approaching death, which they saw as an opportunity to accelerate their plans to steal our inheritance. They discussed specific strategies for challenging his will, for claiming that he was mentally incompetent when he made his final estate decisions, and for positioning Nathan as a more suitable inheritor of the business than his own son. The electronic evidence also included detailed research they had conducted on my personal habits, my business schedule, my relationships with key employees, and my financial vulnerabilities. They had been studying me like a target, looking for every possible weakness they could exploit to maximize their chances of success in destroying my life completely. These recordings were played for Alex and Jake as part of the FBI's investigation process, and hearing Nathan and their own mother mock their father and grandfather while plotting to steal our family's livelihood was a devastating revelation that changed their entire understanding of the situation. The FBI recordings completely transformed Alex and Jake's understanding of what had been happening to our family over the past year. When Special Agent Jennifer Walsh played selected portions of Nathan and Carmen's conversations for my sons, they heard their trusted father figure calling me pathetic and weak, laughing about manipulating them against their real father, and discussing specific strategies for using them as tools in his plan to destroy our family. Jake came to me that evening with tears streaming down his face, apologizing profusely for the horrible things he had said at my father's funeral and for believing Nathan's lies about my character and priorities. "Dad, I'm so sorry for everything I said and did," he cried, unable to make eye contact because of his shame and guilt. "Nathan told us that you were planning to send us away to military school after Grandpa died, and that Mom needed to get divorced to protect us from you. He said you only cared about work and money and that you never really wanted to have children in the first place." Alex was more angry than sad about the systematic deception and manipulation they had been subjected to for months. "I can't believe I trusted him over you, Dad," he said with obvious fury in his voice. "He made us think you were the bad guy who didn't care about us, but he was lying about everything the whole time. He was using us to hurt you, and we were too stupid to see what he was really doing." Both of my boys moved back home immediately and refused to have any further contact with Carmen or Nathan. They changed their phone numbers, blocked all social media contact, and even provided sworn statements to FBI agents about the specific gifts, promises, and lies that Nathan had used to manipulate them against me during my father's final months. The reunification with my sons was emotionally overwhelming for all of us. We spent hours talking about the manipulation they had experienced, the lies they had been told, and the guilty feelings they were struggling with about their treatment of me during such a difficult time. I assured them that I understood they had been victims of sophisticated psychological manipulation by adults they trusted, and that their reaction had been completely normal and understandable given the false information they had been fed. Learning the truth about Nathan and Carmen's conspiracy brought my family closer together than we had been in years, united by our shared experience of betrayal and our determination to see justice served for the crimes that had been committed against us. The arrests happened on a Tuesday morning in April, exactly 3 months after my father's funeral, with the kind of dramatic flair that FBI agents reserve for cases involving particularly egregious crimes against innocent families. Federal agents arrived at Cross Industries headquarters at 8:30 a.m. with search warrants and arrest warrants for Nathan Blake, timing their arrival to coincide with the beginning of our normal business day when maximum disruption would occur. Nathan was in the middle of a presentation to potential new clients from Ford Motor Company, discussing our manufacturing capabilities and our plans for expansion in the electric vehicle components market, when 6 FBI agents walked into our main conference room and placed him under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and racketeering. The Ford executives watched in shock as their potential business partner was handcuffed and read his Miranda rights in front of a room full of our employees and visitors. Local television news stations had been informed about the arrests in advance by FBI public relations personnel who wanted to send a strong message about the consequences of financial crimes. Camera crews from 4 different Detroit television stations were positioned outside our building to film Nathan being let out in handcuffs and leg shackles, creating dramatic footage that would be broadcast across southeast Michigan throughout the day. By evening, the story was the lead story on every local news program in Detroit. "Business partner arrested for stealing millions" was the headline that destroyed what remained of Nathan's reputation in our community and provided public vindication for my family's suffering. The news coverage included details about the offshore banking, the fake companies, the phantom employees, and the conspiracy to steal our inheritance. Carmen was arrested at her workplace at Morrison & Associates Marketing on the same federal charges. FBI agents waited until she was in the middle of a client meeting, then escorted her out of the building in handcuffs while her colleagues and clients watched in amazement. The marketing firm immediately fired her and issued a statement distancing themselves from any knowledge of her criminal activities. Angela Morrison was arrested at her law office for conspiracy, money laundering, elder abuse, and racketeering. The Michigan State Bar Association immediately suspended her law license pending the outcome of the criminal trial, and several of her other clients began reviewing their cases for possible malpractice or fraud issues. The federal trial lasted 8 weeks and received extensive coverage from local and national media outlets who were fascinated by the scope of the conspiracy and the cruel timing of the divorce papers being served at my father's funeral. The courtroom was packed every day with journalists, cross-industries employees, family members, and Detroit residents who had been following the case since the arrests. The evidence against all 3 defendants was overwhelming, detailed, and completely undeniable. Federal prosecutors presented over 500 pieces of evidence, including financial records, computer files, recorded conversations, photographs, hotel records, banking documents, and testimony from more than 30 witnesses who had been affected by their crimes. Nathan was convicted on 15 federal charges including embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted money laundering, racketeering, and elder abuse. The jury deliberated for only 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Federal Judge Catherine Martinez sentenced Nathan to 18 years in federal prison without possibility of parole and ordered him to pay $3.8 million in full restitution to Cross Industries. His personal assets, including his home, cars, and retirement accounts, were seized to begin recovery of the stolen money. Carmen was convicted on 12 federal charges including conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, and elder abuse. She received a sentence of 12 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $2.1 million in restitution. The federal judge noted that Carmen's decision to serve divorce papers at my father's funeral demonstrated a level of cruelty and calculated malice that shocks the conscience and demands significant punishment. Angela Morrison received 7 years in federal prison and had her law license permanently revoked by the Michigan State Bar Association. The judge called her actions a profound betrayal of the legal profession and the trust that elderly clients place in their attorneys. Several of her former clients filed malpractice lawsuits that resulted in additional financial penalties. The federal judge called their conspiracy a calculated and heartless betrayal of trust that targeted a grieving family during their most vulnerable time. Judge Martinez noted that the sentences needed to reflect both the financial scope of their crimes and the emotional devastation they had inflicted on innocent victims, including my teenage sons who had been manipulated as part of the conspiracy. But my revenge didn't end with their criminal convictions and lengthy prison sentences. Months before the trial began, while Nathan and Carmen were focused on their legal problems and trying to avoid prison time, I had quietly worked with Helen Rodriguez to make strategic changes to our company's legal structure and establish specific trust funds that would control exactly how any court-ordered restitution money would be used after it was paid back to us. We created new corporate bylaws and established irrevocable trust conditions that would automatically direct any recovered stolen money into charitable purposes that honored my father's memory and values. Every single dollar that Nathan and Carmen were ordered to pay in restitution would go directly into the Robert Cross Memorial Scholarship Fund, established to help deserving young people from working-class families attend college and trade schools. The scholarship fund would continue the legacy of education, hard work, and integrity that my father had always believed in and supported throughout his life. Recipients would be selected based on academic achievement, financial need, and demonstrated character, ensuring that my father's values would live on through the young people who benefited from the fund. Helen Rodriguez had structured the legal documents so that Nathan and Carmen would be fully informed about where their restitution payments were going. Every month for the next 15 years, they would receive detailed reports showing how their court-ordered payments were being used to provide educational opportunities for deserving students. They would know that their crimes were being transformed into positive outcomes that honored the memory of the man they had tried to betray and destroy. The scholarship fund would also include a permanent memorial plaque in our company's main lobby, listing the names of all scholarship recipients and acknowledging that their educational opportunities were made possible through the recovery of funds stolen from the Robert Cross family. Nathan and Carmen's names would never appear on the memorial, but they would know that their criminal actions had ultimately resulted in positive outcomes for dozens of young people who deserved better opportunities. Today, 6 years after that terrible funeral day that changed my life forever, Cross Industries is more successful than it has ever been in its history. The criminal conspiracy that was meant to destroy our company actually resulted in improvements to our financial systems, our security procedures, and our business relationships that have made us stronger and more profitable than ever before. My sons Alex and Jake are now 23 years old and both working full-time in our family business while finishing their college degrees in engineering and business management. Alex has developed innovative manufacturing processes that have increased our efficiency by 15% and helped us secure major new contracts with Tesla and General Motors. Jake has implemented modern marketing strategies that have expanded our client base and improved our profit margins significantly. They learned difficult but valuable lessons about trust, loyalty, and recognizing manipulation, but they also learned that good people can survive betrayal and become stronger than before. Both of my sons are now more mature, more discerning, and more appreciative of genuine relationships than most young men their age. The experience taught them to value integrity over charm and substance over superficial generosity. The Robert Cross Memorial Scholarship Fund has already helped 89 deserving young people achieve their educational dreams and career goals, and it continues to grow every year as Nathan and Carmen make their court-ordered restitution payments from prison. The scholarship recipients include future engineers, teachers, nurses, electricians, and business leaders who will make positive contributions to their communities for decades to come. I eventually remarried a wonderful woman named Rebecca Williams, a pediatric nurse who knew my complete story and loved me anyway. Rebecca understood the importance of family loyalty and had her own experience with overcoming betrayal, which gave her empathy for what my sons and I had survived together. Our marriage is based on complete honesty, mutual respect, and shared values that make our relationship stronger than anything I experienced with Carmen. Sometimes I think about Nathan sitting in his federal prison cell in Pennsylvania, knowing that every month for the next 12 years, he'll be sending money to honor the memory of the man he tried to betray and destroy. Carmen is serving her sentence in a women's federal facility in Ohio, also making monthly restitution payments that fund educational opportunities for young people who represent everything she tried to steal from the future. True revenge isn't about destroying your enemies through anger and hatred. It's about making them spend the rest of their lives rebuilding what they tried to tear down, while you build something even better than what you had before. Justice, served with patience and planning, is always more satisfying than revenge driven by emotion and impulse.